as digital health grows, we have a very interesting panel that we have set up right now, which will be moderated by Mr. Ranjith Menon, partner and executive director at Chiratae Ventures. Speaking on the subject would be Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, co-founder of 1mg, and Gautam Chopra, founder and CEO of BeatO. So Ranjith, I would invite you all to start off. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much to RedSeer for having me here, part of Ground Zero. So really appreciate the invite. Just to introduce myself, my name is Ranjith Menon. I'm a partner at Chiratae Ventures. We manage close to $1 billion, an early stage fund focused on investing in broad-based tech. I lead the healthcare investments. In the last 15 years, we've invested across biotech, medical devices, and increasingly in digital health. And we've committed upwards of $150 million into this space. I also have, with me two other gentlemen who have their ears much closer to the ground than me, and have a much more nuanced and understanding of digital health, especially in India, and how it's panning out. Gaurav and Gautam. So without wasting too much time, if we can get this conversation started, maybe a quick introduction from both of you before we get into a few questions that I have. We can start with Gaurav.
Hi, Ranjith. Thanks for the introduction. Well, actually, I'm going to introduce myself, but thank you for the invitation to this panel from RedSeer folks. My name is Gaurav. I'm a co-founder at 1mg. And I was born and brought up in Kanpur. Background-wise, studied computer science from IIT Delhi, and then have been doing technology all my life.
Hey guys, pleasure to be here, and of course once again get to connect with Ranjith and Gaurav. But thanks again, RedSeer team. Looking forward to this discussion. My name is, as Ranjith introduced, my name is Gautam Chopra, and I'm the co-founder at BeatO, where we're building India's largest digital care ecosystem to be able to prevent, control, and in many cases now be able to help in the remission of diabetes. And BeatO was really born from a personal pain point when, unfortunately, my co-founder Yash and I, both while we were still in our early 30s, were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And we wanted to do something that would help ourselves, and perhaps in the process build out tools that could help positively impact millions of Indians and perhaps several more folks around the world.
Thank you, guys. This is a question for both of you. I mean, it was interesting to see Kushal's chart there on how the sector's kind of grown, but you guys are close to the ground. I mean, 2020, 2021, we've seen this global pandemic, and first part of the year was shut down, second part great adoption. But I want to understand from you folks as to how have you seen 2021 being different from 2020, right? And how has it been different from the previous years, and what is the real change that you've seen, whether it's on the demand side or on the supply side? Maybe Gaurav can start, and maybe Gautam can add to that, but really to understand your perspective of how the year has been different from the last few years.
Yeah, and I think Kushal captured it beautifully in a slide. When COVID hit, I think we were all sort of, we felt that this was going to be a watershed moment for healthcare in India. We'd been shouting from rooftops that digital healthcare, digital health companies, just leapfrogging the whole physical infrastructure like has happened in the West has to happen for India. Otherwise, there's no way that we can service and provide healthcare to over 1 billion users, right? Our physical infrastructure lags woefully and tremendously. And we felt that for the first time, maybe there was an opportunity to just show how powerful this ecosystem is, right? We got some opportunity, I think, with the first wave, but frankly, there were a lot of supply chain challenges with the first wave, with the lockdown, the government, administration, and us, all of us, just trying to figure out how to cope with it. How to set protocols in place, how do we make sure that we continue to keep running and make core healthcare services available to patients when they need it most and where they needed it most. As the year progressed, I think we really got it under control. the second time around as lockdowns eased, but came back with progressive waves of COVID. We got much better with supply chain infrastructure. I also feel that what happened with demand side was that what could be maybe 4 or 5 years of growth in this sector got compressed into maybe 9 months to 12 months. Earlier, before 2020, when I used to go talk to people, tell them I'm from 1mg, people would say, okay, yeah, who are you, like them? Are you like them? We were known, but not like that. But today, I think everyone knows about 1mg and Pharmeasy and online pharmacy. Everyone's tried it, or everyone wants to try it. Diagnostics is a huge uplift as well. We are one of the largest COVID testing now providers in the country today, right? So across the board, I think both from a supply side, we got much better at servicing the needs in a changing scenario, and on the demand side, I feel that COVID provided a massive lift up to digital health ecosystem in general and brands in particular.
Gautam, any thoughts from your side on this?
No, absolutely. So, Ranjit, I think Gaurav hit the nail on the head when he said, COVID helped accelerate, the patient adoption. So before, where perhaps there was a bit of a lacking trust in online services as far as health was concerned, I think it helped us bridge that gap. And many more people got a chance to actually experience digital health who were otherwise, just shoving us away. So, but once they started, testing these digital health services, they realized that these could actually make a positive impact, both in their health as well as in the convenience that these services brought. And I think that's what, of course, on the patient adoption side has helped keep that stickiness intact. I think two more, perhaps for me, when I look at, of course, ourselves and what's happening around the ecosystem, a couple of more positive developments took place. I would say, also adoption, and I would even add familiarization by the healthcare providers, and especially when we're looking at doctors, that took place quite rapidly. So it's no longer the case that, technology, so, doctors feel a lot averse to technologies now. I think they want to, doctors who are relatively older in age, they want to experience technology, and many of them have started using it a lot more than before. And second, I think other stakeholders in the ecosystem also started to now realize the importance of digital health, as I think in Kushal's presentation, I think the starting slide said, hey, we are bringing digital health into the mainstream. Whether this was the pharma companies and health insurance companies, what earlier used to be the case of us wanting to push ourselves and piggyback on them. Now, for the first time, sort of tables turned and they started coming to us. So I think those were, in my view, in addition to what Gaurav said, positive developments certainly coming out of the COVID situation. Of course, when we jog our memory back about a year or so, those were difficult times, as Gaurav said, supply chain issues. I was, in fact, running, calling up Gaurav and a lot of other folks trying to understand what they're doing so we could implement those changes. But I think once those SOPs, etc., started to get built up, I think it smoothened the process a lot for us. And this uplift in terms of both demand as well as partners allowed us to, quickly scale to perhaps what we weren't able to do a few years before COVID.
Well, actually, that's very true, because if you look at the platforms that we back, I mean, what is interesting is really the adoption from the clinician and the clinical community. I think that has gone 3-4x. Maybe necessity, maybe the convenience and everything else that's associated with it. But really, I think that is what my mind at least is pushing this further, because the doctors are, far more comfortable. But you also mentioned trust, Gaurav. I mean, now that, platforms such as yours have kind of built this trust, are these lines kind of blurring, right? I mean, you had, medicine companies, now you have surgery companies, you have diagnostic companies, and so once trust is built with both the demand and the supply side, are these platforms kind of looking, okay, can I offer more because there is a certain amount of trust? So is there kind of lines blurring that you see? I mean, this is, again, for both of you a little bit, right, between products being offered to services being offered to everything else. Do you see that as a progression, or you see vertically being focused is a little bit more better in terms of building trust and equity on the ground?
Great question. And I think, look, it's a little bit of both, right? We know for a fact, in fact, someone posted this really cool article many years back about Amazon, where when you buy stuff on Amazon today, the brand is Amazon and not the brand that you buy, right? And so in some ways, if I pick an extreme example, right, you can say that basically Amazon's trust has lent itself very well to so many other products that they're selling today, right? So we know for a fact that trust is, it can be transferred. So 1mg, for instance, is really trustworthy when it comes to medicine because of the supply chain, etc. And we are taking that trust again to diagnostics because we are setting up some of India's most, state-of-the-art advanced labs and bringing the same transparency, authentication, affordability to diagnostics industry as well. So I think to some degree, the trust does transfer. However, I also feel that different categories have different requirements of trust, right? Popping a pill, which is a standard blister pack product coming from a reliable manufacturer, is very different from actually going and getting someone to operate on your body and taking something out, right? And I think that what we will see is that the trust will transfer, but every category will have to do their own job of building, deeper trust in that area, and spending time and energy. And we are seeing that in surgery space as well. The trust has transferred to some surgeries, which is very clearly early adopter cycle, right? Where maybe the risk is low, the procedures are standardized, SOPs are standardized. And, at some point, maybe it will go to more complex things, right? Where the platforms will become more trust than, let's say, the doctor specifically. So I think it's a mix of both.
And Gautam, from your side, you've actually made this transition, right? I remember the fantastic products that you had for diabetes and then to chronic management. I mean, are you also seeing these kind of lines blurring, or and maybe even beyond this at some point, right? Do you see the same thing, or you saying?
Yeah, no, so I would say Gaurav was quite diplomatic answering that he took the middle path. But I think, Ranjith, for me, when I look at this space, of course, maybe I'll answer it in a couple of dimensions. The first is what we or any businesses in India will want to try out and involve to do, simply because of, I think, Kushal pointing out, it's an out-of-pocket, outpatient care is largely all out-of-pocket. And the wallet size is fairly limited in its size, right? So I think all of us, or most players, would want to definitely try and extract as much as possibly can from that limited wallet size that is there. Having said that, when it comes to healthcare, I increasingly have started to believe that it is a role playing in terms of expertise that different aspects of health need to be able to carry in terms of the product and the solution, and it's not very easily transferable either. I mean, in a non-tech way, if you have a normal cold and cough, you'll perhaps go to a GP, but you have a more complex situation, you'll perhaps go to a more expert in terms of the speciality that you need to address. So in the same way, I think as far as healthcare is concerned and the trust building is concerned, there will emerge expert solution, which will have to be, of course, and I'm a little biased, of course, from the space I come, will have to be vertically integrated, but there is obviously going to be horizontal players and ecosystem builders like what 1mg and Pharmacy and others are doing. But there is a very solid role playing that experts and vertically integrated players like us will also have to contribute in terms of ensuring that when long-term engagement with patients or members is concerned, it can be dealt with an expert hand-holding them over a long period of time, which perhaps in my view a horizontal player may not be able to. Of course, they can try. They will be able to perhaps do it to an extent, but may not be able to bring in that level of depth that perhaps be required through a vertically integrated player. I think you asked me about the food. Sorry, go on.
Gautam, I have a question for you. So do you think primary care startups should not try and do surgery, and surgery startups should not try and do primary care?
Well, I have my own views. It's not about what you shouldn't be doing or should be doing, as long as you do it well and the customers believe in the service that you're bringing out is eventually helping them in terms of outcomes and other aspects of what brings them convenience and affordability, I think it will work out. I'm just saying it's very hard to do in terms of, where the company's focus has to be. So, one can be outcome driven, the other, of course, can be more transaction driven. And it's at times difficult to balance different views and bring them all together. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, both can be done, Gaurav. Are you getting into surgery care now?
Of course not.
There's already so many players. But, surgery, this is interesting because, I mean, surgery, is more towards, therapy and everything else. But I always felt that this whole preventive space is, on paper so large. Just the fact that awareness is not there, and hopefully, COVID is just kind of triggered that bit of antenna in everybody else to be a little bit more aware of what our health condition is. Do you see progress there, in the sense that we will see more companies that are focused more on preventive than on saying, I go, once something has gone wrong, I'll help you get something, surgery or whatever all of that is, right? But really, do you see an opportunity for platforms to say, okay, here is something that you might want to help you, whether it's devices, whether it is, monitoring, whether it's everything else that can be put together, right, as a service that help people manage their, health even before they get into a situation of requiring any intervention?
I would request Gautam to take this first, meaning this is squarely in his territory.
Yeah, so I think, Ranjith, if people didn't feel the importance of preventive health before, I think COVID just showed us how important it is. Unfortunately, people with chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, etc., were unfortunately at the brunt of mortality and other aspects. So I think overall people have started to realize the importance of being relatively more proactive. I would say, use the word relatively because we have, as humans, have a tendency to go back to the old state. So people are definitely relatively more health conscious. Of course, how that pans out over a period of time is something that, of course, we will also want to keep a close eye on. But broadly, people wanting to monitor, people wanting to, get various aspects of their health in order so that certain complications don't arrive in the future. I think that realization and that understanding has definitely come in more than what it was before. So, and I can just point it out with, some of the metrics we have for us, simple things like the reading frequency. So frequency of, people monitoring their sugar levels has gone up. Increasingly over the last year or so, we've seen the growth being led through people coming from smaller towns. So, tier 2, tier 3 cities. As well as the fact that, very interestingly, about 55% of our members who are coming in and having, starting to engage with nutritionists and dietitians, etc., have never had a formal advice being given to them from a dietitian or nutritionist before. So I think all these are very interesting signs for us to start building hypotheses for the future that, there has been a change in terms of how people think about their own health, and which is positive, in terms of how, eventually some of the platforms, the way we are trying to build services and products for the future can actually, can get more adoption than perhaps it was, a year and a half or so back.
Yeah, if I could just pick up the thread. Look, preventive health has been the holy grail of healthcare for the longest time, right? The biggest challenge, I believe, is actually aligning consumer incentives to follow the preventive health, because it's not transactional, it's a journey, right? And we all know that journeys are hard. Fitness journeys are hard, wellness journeys are hard, preventive health journeys are hard, right? And I think that more than fitness, I think preventive health journeys are even harder because they involve aspects like monitoring, aspects like right advice, and a lot of lifestyle changes to go through. And my biggest, insight there is that unless India actually gets a payer, right, who's willing to incentivize good behavior, right, I think we will continue to struggle with preventive health, and it may not become as mainstream as we would like it to be, right? The good news is that I think that a lot of payers are coming in. Insurance is becoming more and more prevalent. I think outpatient insurance programs are coming in, will become, they've been slower than we would have liked or anticipated, but they will become mainstay. the government is doing a lot in terms of Ayushman Bharat and PMJ and trying to get uninsured insured. I think that's a huge initiative. I think a lot of corporates are taking the initiative of providing benefits to their consumers and providing incentives that way, right? A lot of insurance programs are bundling in benefits, like at least with the likes of 1mg, etc., and making sure that you can now start to access outpatient care services, at a cheaper cost as well. So I feel that until we get like a large payer or an incentive giving economy, it will not have as much adoption as we would like it to be, because it will continue to stay out of pocket and it will become a discretionary spend, right? More than anything else. But on the plus side, I think there are enough, wheels moving that will probably make a payer come and establish itself in the ecosystem.
I think it's also such a massive white spot, no? I mean, people with diabetes actually don't find insurance very easily, or it's very expensive. And with platforms like what we're trying to do and some of the others, now we are able to actually help help people improve their condition fairly quickly, and that's when they can actually enter into an insurance product or get an insurance program as well. So I think that's of course, we will have to perhaps also see a greater penetration of payer systems come in. But having said that, I think these compliance-based incentives can also be built, and what we are trying to do, and perhaps you also do, Gaurav, can be built while payer comes in. There are other means and ways also to be able to incentivize members to be able to start being more proactive about their health. And this is something we always are continuing to do, because we don't have the luxury of a payer system that the US has. So we have to be entrepreneurial about it and figure out ways and means to be able to simulate that in a non-payer environment.
And my view is that a lot of the benefits providers will probably mature into figuring out how to become incentive providers as well. Just like you guys launched that program, which was very cool many years back, right? Where you were providing like the whole 1 year benefits plus monitoring package, right? So I think the ecosystem will experiment, and we will get to, and when I said payer, I didn't mean literally that insurance companies will come. I think, we will all mature into becoming benefits providers of some way, shape or form.
On that note, Gaurav, I mean, see, you guys kind of, pioneered this whole business, right? I mean, in the sense that, it's almost category defining with what you did with 1mg when you guys started this, right? How do you see this growing from here, right? I mean, are you seeing growth coming from going horizontally into offering more services, or you say you go deeper into India? Because it's a huge country, and you see the gaps that Kushal's presentation put out, right? So how do you see that, and how do you grow from here?
The beauty is that even though we are big and we defined a category, we are still minuscule, right? 97% of healthcare, like if I just talk about pharma, right? 97% of pharma is offline today, right? All said and done, we are big, 1mg is big, Tata 1mg is big, PharmEasy is big, NetMeds is big, there's adoption, there's acquisition, etc., etc. We're still like a puny 3%. So there's a huge opportunity in just growing that 3% to 10%, 30%, 20%, right? And I think again, India will see rapid adoption, because one of our core beliefs when we were doing 1mg was that India will basically leapfrog this offline consolidation and probably start to be online first large companies, right? And it's starting to play out that way. So part of our growth is, I think, simply just the category today. We think it's big, but it's massively underpenetrated, right? It's underpenetrated in cities, it's underpenetrated in tier 2, tier 3. I think the second is that, look, acute is a huge area of growth for us, but even chronic, we are maybe 7% of chronic penetration in India, right? Even there's a massive growth opportunity. In the last 2 years, one of the big things that has happened is that a lot of us have been able to fix our service quality experience and just take it to the next level, right? Today, 1mg is doing, 60, 90-minute deliveries consistently in some of the largest cities, and we are rolling that service out to more and more cities. The moment we do that, it basically opens up a whole new patient population for us to go service, right? And so that's another area of growth for us. So if you ask me, service quality experience, just brand awareness, and going after the overall healthcare population is like large enough growth opportunity for us, at least for the next 5-10 years.
And how do you see this, Gautam? You are really in the midst of this whole holy grail, right? I mean, chronic management, and India basically carries the disease burden of the world, right? Whether it's diabetes, oncology. I mean, we had 1 million cancer patients. You take anything. I mean, we're fairly large in terms of the depth. And how do you see this? And they also help us understand a little bit on, how do you look at this, because you're able to track the life cycle, right? Are people interested in outcomes? I mean, because that's not at all tracked in India, for example. And it's one of the questions that came up on the panel, right? As to, does these things help you look at outcomes? And studying that, does that make a difference and help overall cost of healthcare delivery going forward, right?
No, I think as Gaurav pointed out, I mean, we barely just scratched the surface, and there's so much more to do. And given chronic condition, the sheer volume of folks, Ranjith, who are impacted by it, I think makes it clear that the way to be able to reach out to them is going to be through digital tools. Otherwise, it's not going to be cost effective in any sense of the word. So when we look at how perhaps an individual can be brought onto the ecosystem or through a digital platform as far as the chronic disease management like diabetes, etc. is concerned, I believe having definitely a tangible hook allows, like for example, we have the connected starter kit, etc., allows us to be able to penetrate fast at a reasonable cost of acquisition, land up into a household where there is a condition like diabetes. And we're seeing, like I said, a lot of the growth come in, especially from the non-metros, where unfortunately, as Gaurav pointed out, the access as well as the infrastructure is largely missing. And once they start experiencing, digital health, it also becomes, so it's like, we didn't have too many desktops and we suddenly started having mobile phones. And I think perhaps for, the segment of population which we're talking about in terms of people beyond metros, people with, perhaps not as much access because of the economic propensity that doesn't allow that. These people are going to perhaps have 80% digital interaction on health and perhaps 20% physical interaction, as opposed to what might happen otherwise, what people in the metros are used to. So I believe that, once you start getting them to taste or get the flavor of digital health, for example, when people start monitoring, they start to and then they get real-time advice, for example, on the BeatO ecosystem. They understand the why behind their data. They get contextual education about what next they should do to be able to better improve the health condition. And once they start seeing tangible benefits in terms of, hey, I took this reading, I got this feedback, and when I implemented this, it had this positive impact on my next day's blood sugar reading. That's what actually creates this virtuous cycle of management, and then eventually helping us to be able to also create this virtuous cycle of consumption and of course monetization on the platform. So if I look at it, of course, very early days for us, we are perhaps on day 0, and still I think all of us, but having said that, I think the next wave of growth definitely will be the fact that we need people to start experiencing, more people to start experiencing digital health, because as soon as they do, and these are people who haven't otherwise had great access, they realize the benefit very quickly, and now the results are all tangible. It's not like, I went to a doctor, he prescribed me some medication and I came back and just started popping pills, but never measured myself or got any feedback. Now you're doing it real time, you're keeping progress of, what your outcomes are in terms of evolution of the condition. And that actually motivates you more than you coming back and popping pills and then after a while, just dropping off from the medication itself. So I think that whole, way of perhaps people to experience health, is what will be the catalyst for greater adoption in the near future.
How I wish I could keep this conversation going. One thing is very clear. Last year, we saw a bunch of unicorns, the year of the unicorns as far as India is concerned, right? But one thing is very clear to me. I think digital health is kind of put a stake in the ground last year. And it's very, very clear, given the challenges that we see and the opportunities the tech systems can build for, that this year and the next few years we will see a lot more that's coming up from the digital health side. Now, really, thank you guys for having this conversation with me, and wish you all the best as you build very large businesses successful at that, right? And thank you very much for being part of this. And I also want to congratulate RedSeer and Ground Zero for putting this together. Fantastic platform, and all the best to you guys too.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, RedSeer.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.